I've honestly hated the idea of being alone. I wouldn't say I really grew up with that many people around me, and I honestly never, I don't have siblings. I don't really have cousins that I talk to, or genuinely any family that was there for me in my life. I have Asian parents, and what the thing with Asian parents is you aren't able to speak to them about personal issues that you might be having. They will either try to make you feel worse or put the blame onto you, and not really hear out what you're trying to say. And I just wouldn't say that I would go to my parents for any sort of comfort or anything in my life. I would kind of bottle all the problems that I would have and keep them to myself. And because of that, the reasonable option for me, since I didn't really have anyone, was to just make as many friends as I could. And I just honestly just wanted more people to be around me. And because of this, I would force myself into as many friend groups as I could, or people to be around with throughout my elementary to high school life. And my method of making friends was honestly just being goofy. I wanted people to smile, people to be happy, and that would make me happy, and I would just wouldn't have to worry about anything. It would just make my day, as long as I saw someone happy. And this was just a coping strategy that I kind of used throughout my school life as a way to avoid any bad thoughts that I would have. And honestly, it did help me quite a lot. It gave me the certainty that as long as I kept doing this quote unquote method or strategy, I would able to just move on with my day with a happy mood and I would have nothing to worry about. However, I felt like the biggest thing about growing up is that people will grow away from you. The friend groups that I once had eventually moved on from me and made their own groups or found new people uh, to be friends with. And I kind of was just by myself. I never really understood that I'm not meant to be liked by everyone. I never really stuck with that notion. And, every single person has their own people that they're really interested in. And I lived under the notion that being funny means I'm automatically just going to be liked by everyone. But yeah, realistically, that just wasn't the case. And eventually, at a period of time that I just had to be alone. There was no one to text. There was no one to call, no one to hang out with. I just had nothing interesting going for my life. And, the biggest thing I liked doing was gaming, and even gaming wasn't much of a solution. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I feel like never in my life was I able to create my own happiness. I always was dependent on other people. I was too reliant on other people's lives, and they're like, if they're succeeding in something, or I cared too much about other people. And rather than focusing on myself, I had you know, I cared too much about other people's opinions of me or how they viewed me. It was just not much of a good thing. And I've gotten into the idea that you need to appreciate being alone because no one is going to be there to motivate you. No one is going to be there to save you, and no one's going to be there to push you to become a better person. At the end of the day, it's you. And no one is going to spoon feed you things so you can become better or move away from the bad things that you could be experiencing. You need to be able to play with your own thoughts because it's you against the world. And this mentality has been extremely important for me for the past 2 years, I would say. I've lost loved ones, I've lost close friends that once were brothers, and now, they'll never be in my life ever again. And I look back at this and I've realized this is an essential part about growing up and creating a better mental state for yourself. The human mind, the human brain is extremely complicated. And, if there's certain bad moments that line up together, you might feel the same way. Every human will experience some sort of loneliness or some sort of bad moment in their lives. But the biggest thing is that you should be able to combat those problems and not succumb to them or not let them make you. And I think the biggest thing that people need to do if they genuinely feel like they're stuck in life is honestly go for walks. And this is the thing that has worked for me a lot. You need to surround yourself with a good environment, with a healthy environment. Nature is a healthy thing, and nature can definitely heal you. You need to occupy yourself with something. People like myself, I tend to dissolve when there's something going on that's bad, or if I'm in the thought of extreme loneliness. you know, and I feel like I've realized now that distraction is important, but you got to also focus on what are you distracting yourself with. Like social media is definitely not the best thing you should be using as a form of distraction. Stuff like, focusing on your job, focusing on school, getting the grades up, going to the gym, working on yourself, your health, and it could be games or it could be nature. Are more than enough ways to get out of these thoughts. But yeah, that's just my yap session for today. Thank you guys for listening.